the influence of David Moyes remains at West Ham. There's no doubt about that at all. It was there for all to see. Look, if West Ham were a little bit different, we enjoyed a little bit more possession and we played a little bit higher up the pitch. Maybe the fullbacks were a bit narrower. There were some subtle differences, but by and large, you sort of got to be a football expert to really notice them, I'd imagine, and certainly. But from my eyes, what I saw, there's a lot of David Moyes stuff going on there. What am I talking about? The forward, Antonio, being isolated, didn't really get any better once full crew came on. Jared Bowen was, out of the game for large periods of time. Look, Bowen was great. Bowen is great. But, I was sort of hopeful with a new coach coming in that he'd get more involved in the patterns of play. And that's going to happen. I'm not jumping the gun. I'm not saying Lopetegui out or anything like that. I'm just saying he's got a lot of work to do here. If what he wants to do is instill a new culture in the club, it's going to be very, very difficult. And it was hard not to watch it. And think of David Moyes. It has to be said, we went behind in a game very, very early. It took us a long time to get going. The substitutions seemed to take a long time. There were numerous long balls. In fact, I would go as far as, here's a paradox for you. We had more possession than we would normally have under David Moyes, but I think we launched more long balls. I really do. And I think that's only going to get more. And by the way, let me just say, I don't mind them. I think in many respects, we possibly looked at our most threatening when we started playing long balls. And I think Kilman's going to start, well, Kilman is doing them. I think Todibo will do possibly even more than Kilman will. And I don't think it's going to be any bad thing. I think there's a bit of a reality check here. Anyone expecting an immediate metamorphosis from David Moyes to a tippy-tappy style of football, it ain't going to happen. And because he's just got such an ingrained, embedded culture in the club. And you can feel it everywhere. You could feel it in the team. You can feel it in the stadium. You could just everyone's so used to us playing a certain way now. And it's, I guess, look, that's testament to Moyes, who really did stamp his style and stamp his personality and his character on the team, and it served us so well on so many occasions. And I guess in many respects, it's the defence. It's hard to say the defence was better, but we were under the cosh massively in that first half. We seemed to be inviting wave after wave of attack, and there were points where they'd flash up the possession stats on the screen, particularly in the first half, and you looked at it and you thought, I didn't feel like that. It felt like we were under pressure. It felt like we were under the cosh. It felt like, in many respects, we were defending for our lives. Midfield's going to need to be sorted out. I'm sure he knows all of this stuff, and I'm sure he is going to sort out all this stuff. And it is the first game, so you don't need to tell me, it's just the first game. I know this, but I'm just saying, it's going to take a lot more work, I think, to get that sorted out. I'm quite it was weird. It was weird watching how we played against Celta Vigo. And I know it was a friendly match, but it was a friendly match for Celta Vigo and us. And I know this was competitive and it is different. But there seemed to be an intent to get Paqueta on the ball more, to get him pulling the strings, to creating stuff. I don't know if it was because Soucek was pushed so high up, which he was on numerous occasions, pushed really, really high up. As I mentioned in last night's video, you almost saw a vintage Soucek in terms of how frequently he got into the box. It's almost like he couldn't. It's like that original David Moyes ploy, and he couldn't quite resist it. You've got it there. You've got this option there of this big guy who's an absolute menace in the opposition box, and it might not necessarily fit with your philosophy of playing the ball on the ground necessarily or controlling possession. But if you're going to play long balls, which he clearly wants to do, then Soucek is going to become a real option. And it was, just as I mentioned yesterday, it was telling that he played 97 minutes. And that's another thing, in many respects, that didn't change too much. 72 minutes for the first set of substitutions. I'm concerned about the midfield. At early stages, concerned. An area that needs addressing, and it will be addressed. It's going to take a while for Rodriguez to get up to the pace of the Premier League. We need Alvarez back. And we're looking at not a replacement, but he wants 2 players for every position, which is why we're looking at Soler at Paris Saint-Germain. I think that's really important, because if you get to a point where Paqueta's not firing, and it's hard, particularly bearing in mind he was instrumental in the goal, scored the penalty, obviously. There's going to be people that will say, well, hold on, he was firing. He wasn't. In general, open play, he looked like a shadow of the creative genius that he is. I think it's really, really important that if you have someone else on the bench, that you do something with it and you switch early. But it was very, very familiar. It was a late switch. You're watching the second half, and the switch was late. But I have to say, we were in control of that second half. I wasn't looking at it screaming for substitutions, because in many respects from half-time, probably up until the point where they made their substitutions, particularly Ramsey, Duran, West Ham were a better team. But that's familiar, isn't it? Again, that's a familiar thing. Even with Aston Villa last season, he made his substitutions, Emery, and he won the game. He did it again. But they're long established. He's been there a long time. It wasn't just last season he took over. Was it the season before, something like that? He took over from Steven Gerrard. He's been there a fair time, hasn't he, Emery? So he's really got his team playing and dancing to his tune, and he's not got to really convinced or train too many people in a new style. Lopetegui's got to train everyone in a new style, and I don't know. Look, it's not for me to criticise pre-season. Either pre-season was a little bit thin, or I'm not sure. Maybe pandered to a few too many. I don't think the club could have done much more in terms of getting players in. It's over to him now. It really is. As I say, maybe one more midfielder. I think that's the case. Maybe an attacking midfielder. Maybe so he can do something else. He's going to need to get control of that ball in the centre of the park. But Aston Villa will do that to other teams. So I do think there's a. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. So basically, Sorry, I interject. I'll get back to it. I don't know if you can hear it. 2 gardens down. They're having a karaoke. They're having a karaoke in the garden. Anyway, at least someone's having a nice time. They clearly weren't watching the game, because I could hear them singing throughout the game. Look, got to sort out midfield, but by and large, he's had the support of the club. And I think if you were Steidton or Sullivan, you're probably able to sit back now and say, look, we really couldn't have done any more. And I think that's the case. Takeaways from it, I want to say this. I thought Somerville looked sharp. I know I said it yesterday. I think that's really, really good. Kudus looked good. I don't like him on the left-hand side. I don't. But he is just an exceptional player. And rightly so that he stayed on until the end. It was quite funny, actually, because there was a point during the game when he thought his number was up. And I thought, no, surely no way. He got it absolutely right. And I guess there's from Lopetegui's a good thing. He's brave enough to take his captain off. He was uninvolved. He was uninvolved in the game, Bowen. He wasn't getting into the game. Antonio was right to bring him off. Wasn't involved in the game. Rodriguez had tired. Rodriguez, he's just not up to Premier League pace. But I thought he was left on his own for a lot of the game in central midfield. Some of it, not afraid to put his head where it hurts, though. Fullbacks, as I mentioned, I think that is going to almost take the longest time to coach them in how he wants to be played, because we are susceptible. And I know Bailey's good. I know he is, but there's space out there. There's space on West Ham's flanks to be exploited. And I can see a lot of teams doing it. But anyway, what can I say? There's a lot of work to do. And I guess it was always going to be us. I said it in a build-up show. I didn't expect us to get towards our best, for a little while. It's a massive, massive upheaval. You've also got to remember, even when David Moyes tried to change our playing style, he struggled. He ended up switching it back. I think Lopetegui's going to have to find a hybrid way. But I definitely would advocate us sorting out that problem. If we don't sort out that problem, and I'm sure we will, I keep on having to caveat this, don't I? I'm sure we will. If we don't sort out that problem, then we'll have an issue with Fulkrug. We really will. We need to find a way to get crosses to him, get him into the game. I am confident that will happen, though. I really am. Somerville, yeah, pleased. Little bright spark that was. Pleased to see that. I thought Kilman was okay. I'd be interested to see him with a new partner. And, well, I think he needs to perhaps integrate a few more of his newer players into the team. I just think it was a bad day at the office for Antonio, it has to be said. I think there were possibly against other teams, Antonio will probably fare a little bit better. But yeah, there you go. It's weird though, isn't it? You know, you look forward to it for so long, the start of the new season. West Ham clearly aren't the only team that are going to be losing their first game of the season. But, you know, off the back of such a healthy window, which offered so much promise, it was a bit of a sucker punch, really, wasn't it? But there you go. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm sure we'll dissect it a little bit more in the coming days. But I'd certainly, if West Ham could just dip into that transfer window maybe one more time and do something else, give us a little bit of something else in the middle, I don't think it'd be any bad thing.